All yours.
Okay. Call to order the City of Philomath Planning Commission meeting. Can we have a roll call?
Peggy Yoder,
Here.
Van Hunsicker,
Here.
Haley Green,
Here.
Gary Connor,
Here.
and from the City Council, Ruth Kazi.
Here.
And for staff, you've got myself, Chris Workman, City Manager. And it looks like Gianna's
Okay,
just
thank you.
coming in. If you want to give her just a half second.
Chris, were we expecting somebody from the city attorney's office or no?
No, not this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Gianna, we just took roll call, so you just made it in by the skin of your teeth. Welcome.
Sorry.
That's fine. In my world, 3 minutes late is on time.
We inhabit the same world.
Okay. So before we begin the official agenda, since we were talking about Steve Boggs being off the Planning Commission now, have there been applicants? Is that process underway?
There have, so those go to the City Council on Monday night and they'll make selections.
Okay. So theoretically, at our next meeting, we would have a replacement for Steve.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So our new business this week is the update to the Comp Plan Chapter 1 Citizen Involvement Program. And I see that there's a pretty nice breakdown in our packet of a comparison of the City of Monroe, Dallas, and then a variety of staff and Planning Commission member comments. Seems like a good format to help us march through to discuss each section. And we might start off with maybe a few statements from you, Chris, and a summary. But I think unless anybody has a better idea, I think we just go through row by row and see what we have to say.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. So I'll just say, I don't want to take any credit here. Ruth Post, City Recorder, took a lot of time in organizing and putting this together. So appreciate her efforts on behalf of the commission to do that. As she was going through it and seeing it side by side, maybe just to bias everybody a little bit, it seemed like Monroe's is pretty good. Dallas, as we kind of talk about early on, they seem to mix in some more maybe more technical things and kind of some more like goals and objectives into theirs, which may be okay, just kind of depending. But I think as we're going through, what would be helpful for me would just be to identify if we like Monroe, we'll just kind of highlight that. If we like the Dallas section better, we'll do that. If we want something different than Monroe or Dallas, we don't necessarily have to wordsmith it, but just give me some pretty clear direction on what it is that we'd like our version of that section to cover. And then the intent here, after we go through all of this tonight, would be for staff to put something together and get that out to the public and all of you in preparation for a public hearing at your next meeting here in a few weeks on the, whatever date I had. Oh, what do we say, the 19th?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday, the 19th. So, if I get hopefully after tonight, that gives me a couple of days to pull it together by the end of the week to get that out to the public, and then give them, a good week and a half to go through it and be prepared to bring comments on the 19th to the hearing. Following the hearing, there'll be additional time for deliberation from members of the commission, tweaks that we want to change based on any of the information that you heard at the public hearing. We can kind of make final changes and then bring that back as a recommendation to the City Council. So we do just want to keep the time frame in mind a little bit. We don't want to rush things, but we don't want to span it out over multiple months, where we can do it in a little bit shorter time frame. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So Monroe, Dallas, or something different with some pretty clear guidelines for me, so we can put this together into the next couple of days.
So before we just start marching through row by row, I guess I'd like to ask if anybody feels like this format has anything missing from it. It's easy to dive into the detail line by line and talk about the detail, but I think it's important to just pause and look at the big picture. Were there any thoughts that there is something not being addressed here, or is it what everyone expected to see? Commissioner Yoder.
It's pretty much what I expected to see, especially with the 3 recommendations that most of the planning commission sent in that are added to it. Yeah, I think that this is really good. We got to commend Ruth on putting this together because it really looks good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well then I think we'll just make it simple and we'll be on page 1, row 1, citizen involvement goal.
Is it helpful, commissioners, for me to share my screen so we're all kind of looking and I can highlight as we go, or is everybody
Yeah.
look at each other? Or?
I think it's better to share the screen.
Okay, let me go ahead.
You
and do
take
that.
any notes or anything?
Let me do that.
I would say it would make sense to share the screen if we don't have the pages. Do we all have the pages?
Well, I do, but if we discuss something and do you have the native file there so you can take notes in it, Chris?
I do. I've got the Word document. Well, I'm bringing the Word document up now.
Yeah, so I think, Peggy, the benefit of his screen is that if we all say something and he types a sentence or a note to himself, we can read that as he types it.
Okay.
And say, well, not that word, how about this word?
Okay.
We'll get closer to the end by seeing seeing his notes. Fewer iterations, that's my goal. While he's bringing that up, does anybody have anything to say about that first row and the comment that's there from staff?
I think Monroe is too wordy.
I like the wordy.
I think I do too.
And I mean, it'll surprise nobody whatsoever that I like the wordy. But particularly like the bottom paragraph of Monroe that starts public oversight. I really liked that paragraph. To me, I thought that did a really nice job of kind of explaining how the planning commission's role in this and why the planning commission and what their intent is. I don't know, like I liked that, but I also get it that it is wordy, and if we're looking for brevity, Dallas is certainly better in that regard. But I found the wordiness of the Monroe one to be a little more. I felt like as a layperson coming to this, it gave a better understanding of what this actually means. Like to say to ensure meaningful citizen involvement in land use planning. Well, okay, but what exactly does that mean? That's from the Dallas one. And I feel like the Monroe one provided more examples of this is what this means. To have citizen involvement means we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do that. So that's the reason I preferred it.
Under that first section from Monroe, they call it context. And Gianni, I guess I agree with you too, that it helps explain, kind of the purpose of what the rest of it's going to be about.
Yeah.
I think it could have less words, but I have no problem with the words being there. So I guess maybe to just keep pushing forward, does anybody have any objections to any of the Monroe words or anything that's missing from the Monroe words or anything from Dallas that should be pulled over or anything along those lines. Just starting in the top left corner there, proactive and effective citizen involvement. Can we all agree that that's good the way it is, or are there any comments there?
Once you change Monroe to Philomath, it's, it's okay. It's wordy, but I'm okay with wordy. I can get wordy sometimes too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really like that first
Okay,
section.
It does
Great.
mention transportation planning initiatives, which I am not aware that we
Monroe Rising Spit-
have any part of.
that's a good question.
Oh,
Chris, do you have any comment on that with regards to that statement about transportation and how our planning commission functions in contrast with that?
Yeah, no, you're right, really. Excuse me, I think for City of Philomath, we've got a city council member that's assigned to CAMPO, the Corvallis Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. They report directly to the city council. I think that's been kind of the avenue that we've really looked at it. But as an example right now, CAMPO's looking at our area-wide, our regional transportation plan, our RTP, and updating that. And so we've got one council member that sent it to the city council to send to everybody, but there isn't really an organization or a body that's letting the community at large kind of know about this, or that's weighing in on the area-wide regional transportation plan. So I think it's an area that the planning commission could be more involved. We just traditionally haven't been.
Councillor Causey.
I just wanted to ask if the planning commission was involved in the update of the transportation management plan, system plan.
No, it went to, well, only in so much that there was a hearing held prior to the updates to the transportation section of the comp plan. There was a public hearing held at the planning commission level before it went to the city council for a public hearing. But outside of that public hearing process and the input that the planning commissioners were able to give on kind of the final draft version of that, there wasn't any direct input into the formation of the TSP.
If I
But
could,
go ahead, Dan.
oh, sorry, oh, I forgot, I can raise my hand, but I don't know how to without the other stuff. Oh, there it is. Anyway, I'm sorry. 20 years ago, when I was mayor, or 30 or whatever it was now, we had a transportation commission. I think that transportation is always going to be an important part of Philomath, where we have a highway that runs through us. And not that that's the only issue, but I think having the planning commission more involved with it, I think would be helpful. I understand what the Campo, as Chris was describing, but internally, our wants and desires and this and that, have a more local perspective. And I think that's important that that's viewed within everything else, with the economic development, with growth in general. I think transportation is just really important.
So I kind of think that if we're going to be more rigorous about the planning commission being the citizen involvement body, that there will be transportation things in the future. So I guess it needs to be there. And I would propose we just say that Monroe switches to Philomath, and that's our first paragraph.
If I could jump in here, one of the comments I'd made, the second box here on the screen, I think this is just maybe updating or preference more, but throughout the document, my recommendation would be to swap out citizen for community or community member where appropriate. Citizen has a what could be seen sometimes in as an exclusionary tone to it for members of the community that may or may not be legal citizens of the community. And we don't want to make them feel like their voice isn't important as a member of the community. So that's just kind of a general comment throughout, but I'm happy to take any feedback from commissioners on doing that. And we don't need to point it out throughout the entire document, but if the commission is good with that sentiment, then I can just do that kind of throughout the document in the final version.
Sounds good to me.
Mm,
Counselor Causey, you had your hand up early.
Yes, I just wanted to ask what community member means. Does that, and perhaps it needs to be defined, but is that a member, a resident of Philomath, a resident of the Philomath within the urban boundary, or what is that?
Well, I think it says what it says, and everybody's always going to read it differently. I think my two bits is that we've always accepted public input from anyone with any interest in Philomath, with the caveat that they tell us where they live, so we can weigh it accordingly. But we have 3 hands up, and I think Gianna was first.
Yeah, I like the idea of the community member. I don't think we should change it to community because that obviously there's a difference between an individual citizen and a community as a whole. The problem with community member is that that's a real mouthful. It's kind of, I don't like it from a language standpoint because it's just too long. But I appreciate the sentiment behind it, and I like that idea.
Commissioner Hunsaker.
I guess I think that it should be citizen. The statewide planning goal talks about citizen involvement. And as you said, Gary, yes, we ask where people are from when they speak, and we can give deference based on whatever we want to there. But I think, to me, it gives, by saying community, it is broader, and that it may give people the feeling from outside of the community that they have as much a voice as people that live here. And I generally don't believe that.
Commissioner Yoder.
I agree with Van somewhat about I think that it should stay citizen because it states in the Oregon statewide planning goals and guidelines that it's citizen involvement. So that would be my biggest reason to keep with the word citizen in the CCI. And I believe, like Ruth had said earlier about, who are these citizens? And it does get addressed a little bit later on, especially like by Monroe. Monroe says, calls it the Monroe community, but they are including the outlying unincorporated areas. So we could probably change that to who we want to be the citizens, whether it's people within the urban growth boundary or and that kind of stuff. But I do think it should be kept as citizens. Thank you.
Seems like
I've got 2 for citizen and 1 for community. Gary, you want to make a tie, or do you want to keep the decision?
I feel like that's a pretty big issue that I would prefer to kick to the city council.
Ow.
Could I?
No, that's what they're there for. I think that's what they're there for.
Well,
Well-
could I offer an alternative?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Is it possible to say citizen and then have a parenthetical definition of that, which states a citizen, for the purposes of this document, a citizen is any community member within the urban growth boundary or something like that? anyone who lives within the, something, can we define it in a way that we like?
Good.
It's the city, it's our document until the city council gets a hold of it. Commissioner Green.
I was just gonna throw out some other language. I mean, resident of surrounding areas. I mean, yeah, I mean, if we can just define it in any way, then, inhabitant. I mean,
Yeah.
we could throw
Yeah.
out different synonyms if we want to.
Well,
Yeah.
I think resident is a very interesting word because
You're residing within
yeah,
our boundaries.
yeah, as opposed to the community with, there's a lot of people in the community that live halfway between here and Monroe, but they're very much part of our community. So it's an issue. Van, did you
Throwing
have
out ideas.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what Gianna suggested, I would be okay with that, leaving it citizen, but, and I guess Ruth earlier had said about, kind of defining whatever it is and like, so that, so I'd be okay with doing that.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm gonna leave it citizen. And then if we want to define citizen at some point in the document, then we can pick that up. But otherwise, we like the Monroe section on this first page.
Yeah, raise hand.
yeah.
We're not going line, we're going page by page. I didn't realize that. I thought we were going
Yeah,
column by column.
well, I would say we're going row by row. And we talked at length about the first row and kind of hit here and there on the second and third row. So are there any more comments on the second and third rows? Van has a comment there about the CCI being the planning commission, so does the Monroe statement specifically say that? I think it doesn't because it's
No,
different,
because-
right?
Yeah, it has I think the next section, it says that the city council is, but I just assumed we'd automatically change that because I
Yeah.
thought we kind of decided that last meeting.
Yeah, so somewhere in that text in the first page there, I agree that it makes sense to explicitly say that the CCI is the planning commission.
Bottom paragraph does.
Does it?
It says public oversight is provided by the Philomath Planning Commission.
Well, but I think we should use language that exactly ties it to the state code. To say,
I think it's in the
It's
next,
on the next page. It's right here.
okay,
Yeah.
great. Commissioner Yoder.
On the, on page 1, it says some projects have included various citizen involvement methods such as surveys, design charrettes, and intensive planning session, and a few other things, outreach at public events, newsletters, and public tours. Have we done public tours that we can actually say that we've done them?
No, nor have we done charrettes.
Well, I would say some of the work on the downtown plan, there've been some design charrettes where we kind of give feedback to designers.
But,
So I could see that one holding up, but
okay, what about public tours? Can we say that we at Philomath have done public tours? I can't think of one, but maybe we have, and I just didn't go to it. I don't know.
Not that I know.
yeah, we can just strike that.
Okay,
I think, Chris, in the course of citizen the citizen training that you do, Citizens Academy, you get to tour the not
That's
public
true.
works, the water treatment plant.
Yeah, this is specific to projects that we're working on. So this would be like,
Yeah.
we're building a new water treatment plant. And so we go down and do like an open house tour of the facility, or something more specific to a specific planning project, I guess. So
But don't you think you'll do that when it's done?
sure.
Oh, the way
This is saying what's been done though in
Yeah.
Monroe, for example. So
Okay.
Commissioner Hunsaker.
Oh, I'm sorry. My thing says lower hand. Oh. So it's not, my hand's up now?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
Commissioner Bernadini.
That paragraph that we were talking about is one of the reasons I liked Monroe's plan.
Mhm.
But possibly because I was so impressed with everything that they have done. So I viewed that paragraph kind of aspirationally. I was like, whoa, that's all the stuff that we should be doing. But you're correct that the way it's written, it makes it sound like we've done those things. So clearly that needs to be an accurate statement. But I would love to see us do all of those things in the
Why
future.
don't you reword it to say some projects may include?
That
Oh,
would
I
be,
like that.
yep. And then we can leave it, the tours in there.
That final sentence about researching and publishing information about historical growth patterns, all of that. I love that.
Yeah.
I wish and hope we will do that.
Well, technically, we've already done a bit. Okay, great. Can we move on to the next page? Anything else, Peggy?
Oh, no, move on.
Okay. Okay, so that's the first change, is change city council to planning commission.
Oh.
So here is there a reason that we go with Monroe in here? Because like is said in the statement, we don't have that history. Is there anything there in Monroe that needs to be there? As opposed to the one from Dallas that's just kind of describing?
yeah, so none of this would be applicable to Philomath.
Right.
Most of this is not applicable to Philomath. So I think on this one, maybe we lean more towards this statement.
Yeah, Commissioner Hunsaker.
I was gonna say that,
Okay.
what the both of you have said.
Agreed.
I,
Everybody good with that?
Peggy.
I was just thinking that, in our little half-page thing that we have right now, it says that Fulham does not have historical information available. I think that, since it is brought up, the CIP, that we should say we don't have any historical information available. Because either the only other option to do would be to bring up the CIP, and then people say exactly the same thing that we've all said. What is that? But if we say we don't have any historical information on that, to me, it kind of just seems like it means we're going to kind of start from scratch with it, but we're still we're talking and looking at the CIPs.
Van.
Yeah, I can give you some historical. What is there now was what was originally done in 1978. When we updated it in the late 90s, we didn't change that at all. So if you wanted to say something like Peggy's talking about, you could just simply say, this is what it was originally, and we're updating it now or something like that, if you want to add something at all. Don't have a feeling either way about it.
I mean, we could do a statement like they've got here, which was our original, we do know the date of our original CIP and when it was approved. We just don't have a copy of it or record of it. We could say, we have the date of when it was initially approved. We could say we don't have a copy of it. And so we are creating our capital improvement program, which is essentially captured within this chapter. Or this chapter will lay out the city's
Citizens involved.
citizen involvement plan, our citizen involvement program. So, I mean, we can give a little bit of detail, at least what we do have, at least state that.
Well, I guess what I was referring to is what is in the comprehensive plan now, that paragraph, that's what was originally
Right.
adopted. Like I say, because we didn't change it when
Right.
we updated the comp plan. So that was what was original.
Commissioner Bernardini.
What about saying something like this CIP is the update of the original 1978 plan or something like that? Or this plan has not been updated since, criminy jickets, 1978. I mean,
1976. That's what ours says.
Yeah, whatever it is.
I don't know that this needs to be belabored that much. I don't know that it matters really, just. Was that the year it was created in 76?
The original one.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just say this plan has not been updated since 1976. This document is our attempt to do so, whatever.
Well, it would only be this CIP part of it, not the whole plan.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Other than not Monroe.
Yeah,
But you just highlighted Dallas, so we're talking about Dallas.
Well, he'd change it to,
He
he just
copied.
took that from the other one.
Okay. Well,
but Dallas or put Philomath.
Philomath.
that column,
Peggy.
if I'm just trying to understand that column that Chris is messing in right now with the blue, that was Dallas, right? Because
Yeah.
Monroe doesn't talk about the CAC, the Citizen Advisory Committee that's supposed to help the Planning Commission. And that's in the blue area that's highlighted right now. So that was the CAC. That was not Monroe, I don't believe.
No,
That was Dallas, correct?
Right.
It was,
Yeah.
but Chris copied over the one paragraph in Monroe over to the right. That
I copied
Second
this.
paragraph.
Okay, what about the part that says the Planning Commission? That part that where the cursor is right now. To me, on my copy, it looks like that's Dallas. Is that not Dallas?
it is.
it
Okay.
is.
So we're going to want a citizen advisory committee to help the planning commission?
Well, that does happen from time to time. I mean, that's what's happening on several different issues.
The downtown essentially is that.
Right.
Okay,
And the art is that,
okay.
Yeah, this just gives you the option that you could do it. So I think Peggy's point's a good one in that in this section of Monroe, it doesn't provide for formation of a CAC, at least not in this portion of it, but Dallas's does. So I guess the question is does the commission like the option of having the ability to call for, ask the city council to form a CAC to help with whatever issue might come before the planning commission?
Yes.
Did the question of the ad hoc public arts committee, that request didn't really come from the planning commission, correct? Didn't it more come from the city council?
Yeah, staff made the recommendation to the city council to form that to help with that work.
Well, it's just saying that we can recommend to the city council that they do it, but it's always going to be the city council that does it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, if we had some big issue come up before us that needed a bunch of work and wasn't particularly of interest to some of the people, or we needed somebody, we desired to have somebody in the group to discuss an issue and provide input but didn't want to take it in this format, I would want the ability and the suggestion that we could recommend forming a CAC.
Okay.
I agree.
Now, the next page is just really a continuation of the page we're on. And the city of Monroe continues on with just some prose there, but the city of Dallas has 4 more bullet points. And it seems to make sense to me that we just continue on with the city of Dallas bullet points there. Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
It's easier to read with bullet points.
Yeah.
Is everybody good with keeping this section then?
Yes,
I am.
I am.
It seems to be the same stuff, just easier to read, like Peggy said.
Are we putting the chair in charge of writing the annual report?
Sure.
You can do that if you like, but I'm pretty good at delegation.
Okay, page 4. This is primarily just a foreword. And mostly this is talking about changes in Monroe, kind of background information, pretty specific to Monroe. I guess the option would be, do we need something in Philomath's as kind of a background information on where kind of crossroads that we're at right now?
Anna, do you have your hand up on purpose right now?
Ooh. For this part, I really like the first paragraph. And I also like the bottom section where it says, it is paramount that the city's CIP reflect this reality by emphasizing the necessity to achieve these 4 goals. I really like those 4 goals. I liked having that in there. I don't know. Personally, I like the first paragraph and the last sentence. The rest of it could go for me, but that's my opinion on that page.
A little lower, Chris. No, not all the way up to understanding, but starting with yeah, it is
With.
Basically, yeah, exactly.
I think that there is good. And then the first
Although
paragraph.
take out this reality by. Like, reflect the necessity to.
I guess I should have raised my hand.
Go ahead, Van.
Well, I guess I partly disagree with that statement. I don't believe at all that Philomath hasn't had citizen involvement. It has throughout. maybe we're wanting to do even more, but to me, that first paragraph is pretty negative. I mean, it's positive in the sense that they want to improve, but it's, to me, it's suggesting that there was nothing before. And I might be reading it wrong, but
I guess I don't read it that way. Is there a specific word there that you're thinking is saying there hasn't been adequate things in the past? It's really just focusing on change and being proactive to make it better, in my mind.
Yeah, this paragraph kind of implies that, not to answer for Van, but I think this paragraph kind of implies that. But if we're not going to include this paragraph, then
Yeah.
this on itself, I don't think.
Don't delete it yet.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Okay, I was on the third paragraph. This is where Monroe talked about the Monroe community, like what I had mentioned earlier, you know, the residents in the unincorporated areas, surrounding areas. And if we wanted to keep some sort of language like that, we could say of how we want to reach or consider, you know, our outlying areas, like within our urban growth boundaries. I know that people have to, when they come and speak, they say if they live in the city limits or not. And then it's almost like if they say they live in the city limits, then they have more of a say than the people that live, you know, in Forest Meadow Park or some, you know, some places without the city limits. I don't know if we want to address that or not. That's just kind of, I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Or can we? I mean, could we really say we're going to listen to somebody if you live in city limits? We do with voting. Can't vote for a city council if you don't live within the city limits. But do we want to have other people not really have a voice because they don't live within the city limits?
Van, do you have your hand up?
yeah, I guess I would be okay with using that wording, and that kind of goes to the giving a definition of a citizen, although it doesn't say that here. But because it's saying that the program will be respectful of the dynamics between the city of Monroe residents and the greater Monroe community, it is saying that we will consider that. I don't think that it gives them a equal footing, but it is saying that, you know, we understand that the city impacts a greater area than what's in there. So saying that sort of thing, I think would make sense in my mind. And like I say, partly it would be a definition.
Yeah, so can we just highlight in addition to serving? It's on the right, fourth line down.
Yeah,
I mean, and then obviously you would, you know, say, I don't know how you'd say it, but
Yeah, I think if you just go all the way down to the end of that paragraph and then just strike the words inside the parentheses, then that's something that's reasonable.
And question.
Yes. Yeah, Peggy.
Can we, this is gonna sound awful. It says, well, not officially residents of the city, this is what it says in Monroe. Do people that live, say, in Forest Meadow Parks, are they official residents of the city? Do we consider them official residents of the city, or because they're not within the city limits, they're not official residents of the city?
they are in the city.
Is Forest Meadow isn't it just an
Yeah.
urban growth?
nope, it's in the city.
Oh, okay. So this, say, like Egan Drive, off of Wooded Knolls. That's out of the urban growth boundary. But there's still Philomath addresses.
Yeah, so that's outside city limits
Outside urban growth.
and outside urban growth.
Okay. So people that are outside the urban growth, like people on Wooded Knolls, are those, would we be considering them?
Well, I think the language is right there. It's really the greater community residents of unincorporated Benton County. It includes everybody that's near us.
Yeah, the urban growth
As long as-
doesn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah. If they're in the urban growth boundary, they're still residents of unincorporated Benton County.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we good with that then?
This sounds like we are.
I'm fine.
Great.
I guess I can't, I'm stuck on that. I'm sorry. Define unincorporated towards people in Philomath. Now I understand with Monroe, Alpine, Bell Fountain, who do we have in Philomath that we would be respectful? I mean, who would those unincorporated people be in
So
regard?
unincorporated would mean they're not inside the city limits of Philomath or Corvallis or Adair Village or Monroe. So those are the only 4 incorporated areas within Benton County.
But that we don't have anybody by name like Alpine, Bell Fountain, Glenbrook.
Sure we do. Blodgett and
Marys River
Wren.
Estates, Wren.
Yeah.
Okay,
Kings Valley even.
okay.
now it gets a little more complicated.
Yeah, so I guess my general statement here, kind of on the top right there is, I won't just read it, but Monroe, I tend to favor Monroe's approach here where things tend to be a little bit higher level with an expectation that there's going to be some language in the municipal code that's going to reflect those higher level policies that are stated in the comprehensive plan. Dallas, I think, is a little more specific on tasks of specific things that are going to be done. And in some cases, maybe are more specific than what I would prefer at this level of a comprehensive plan policy setting kind of document. So generally speaking, I prefer
And
the Monroe section here and their approach.
And Monroe also ties more directly to the state code,
Yes, it's easier to compare Monroe and state code
right?
than Dallas. They kind of did their own thing.
Commissioner Bernardini.
I guess I was just wondering on that comment of yours, Chris, you mentioned, are you sure? To me, it looks like Monroe is the one with the policies and Dallas is the one with the tasks. Is that not correct? I mean, because the Dallas stuff is like provide opportunity, those seem like tasks to me.
Well, I guess when you get looking through them as better examples, like, for example, this one, appropriate notice of all public meetings shall be given, including date of the agenda of the meeting, et cetera, et cetera. Notice no less than 24 hours before the schedule occurred.
Right.
This is a very specific task driven kind of thing, even though it's not labeled a task or a policy, it's pretty specific as opposed to this statement, which is a little bit more all encompassing, setting policy, not setting out specifics. So in this first section, you're right, they label these as policies, but I think these are more general.
Okay.
Well, I see what you're saying. I think you're right. I think these two words are transposed. I think this is supposed to be, yeah, I see what you're saying. This is supposed to say Monroe versus,
Okay. When I first read it, I thought you had flipped the cities, but I just wanted to make sure.
I think you're right. I think I did.
Okay.
Yeah, Van.
Oh, I will point out that two-way communication, the citizen influence, the technical information, not are the three bullets are, and there's of course others afterward, are exactly the words, or not the words underneath those bullets are exactly out of the Oregon state planning goals.
Mhm.
So those are more specific as far as, right, Chris, of exactly what's said in the Oregon state goals, where actually Monroe's isn't. I understand what you were just explaining with Jonna about one's more technical than the other, but and maybe it doesn't really make any difference. I'm okay with using the Monroe policies as it is, but I just wanted to point that out if you wanted to use that verbiage over on, within the Monroe stuff, because it doesn't say that sort of stuff in the Monroe one.
I do like that language also, and I if I was doing this by myself, I'd probably just take everything in that second box and slap it just below what's there in the first box under Monroe, because it is kind of a generic high level thing that I would read and then move on.
Where would you
Anybody
slap
agree?
it? Sorry, I missed that. You would take
Um,
this, put it where?
In the first box, right below the paragraph under citizen involvement goals and policies.
Mhm.
And I, maybe get rid of the numbers, but just have all those words right there under that paragraph.
And you know what? I said it just backwards. It's the two-way communication, the citizen influence, and the technical information. That's how they have it divided out under the Oregon state thing. But sorry to make it more confusing.
So not sure what you're
So,
doing there.
So
Going
like
from where
under,
next?
under the state, for the second thing, for communication, it says to assure effective two-way communication with citizens. And then it has mechanisms shall be established which provide for effective communication between citizens and elected and appointed officials. So they say it a little differently, but that's what they're talking about. Where, and my point was on the side of Monroe, because the page before they use this inclusion, engagement, accessibility, and accountability, those are not terms specifically out of the state thing. Those are ones they came up with.
Yeah. And that's why I'm in favor of taking all that language from Dallas, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and putting that between the first and second boxes for Monroe. So that way we have the state language there, but then go on to say what it means in our plan. And I would put it above inclusion goal 1. Yeah. There we go. No, you got some deletion going on there. That,
Include this still.
yeah, don't delete that.
I don't know what that just did. There you go.
Yeah. But formatting, maybe just get rid of the numbers or something, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Now, policy 1.1 is obviously not us because it talks at length about.
Well, we've already did that one earlier
Right.
in the, using the Dallas one from the, actually, it was on the first page. Or no, the second page.
Yeah. I don't want to lose I don't want to lose Mr. Sullivan's comments here on the side.
Yeah.
Because before we get too far down. So he had a couple comments in here. Sorry, right there. And it was a little bit more art than science sometimes in finding the right place to put these into the document. Can't highlight it or it brings up a box, but I'm not sure if there's added language in this section or a future section, but I just wanted to be mindful that's where those comments were located.
I get. Oops.
I mean, it's, I guess in general, this is really about communication with the city council as
Yeah.
opposed to a lot of this document. It's really talking more about communication with the public in general and having the public involved. There's not really a part within this section that really talks about the relationship between the council and the Committee for Citizen Involvement or the Planning Commission in this case.
Well, I'm wondering if it might fit down under accountability. You know,
Okay.
where it's talking about that first policy, rights and responsibilities, that we could have some language about communication between the city council, city staff, and planning commission, and that when formal requests are made, there should be formal replies, or something along those lines about being transparent and documenting process, not just final decisions, but status, those sorts of
Yeah.
things.
We're just going to copy that down there for now so we remember it.
Great.
There's somewhere on there that talks about, the city council, it oversees and gives direction to the CCI. So there is somewhere, I don't know where it is, there is somewhere that talks about the relationship between the city council and the CCI. That would probably be a good place to put it.
Yeah, that's kind of this section in here.
That's kind of like bigger picture,
Yeah, I think
yearly type
the
stuff.
excessive. Yeah, I think the accountability section is probably the better one, like you recommended.
Peggy and Van, did either one of you have your hand up, or?
Yeah, I was going to agree because this what Joe's speaking of is more that communication between the planning commission, specifically the planning commission and the city council. So I was agreeing with what you and Gary, you and Chris came up with.
I'd like to note here that we're an hour in. We haven't been doing a good job of taking little breaks. But I think we've kind of been a little bit quiet as we're kind of digesting things. I'd like to propose we take a 5-minute break to let me get a drink of water and do whatever you need to do, and then maybe spend a few minutes looking and thinking and figuring out what our next move is. Sound good?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.